always remember that the people who do not respect your boundaries are often people who benefit from you not having any. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, and if this is your first time here, hello, welcome. This is Essential Patience and I Am Patience, and in today's video I am going to be talking about how to set and maintain boundaries. We all know that there's just some things that we don't want to do, we don't want to participate in, or a certain level of respect that we want people to have with us. If you don't want to do something, if you don't want to participate, you would like people to respect that. And boundaries are very important in life in order to be able to get ahead, accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, and live the life that you want to live. It is always important to put some boundaries in place, and also to make sure to communicate them well so that people will respect your boundaries. So today we're going to talk about just that, how to set boundaries, good boundaries at that, and how to maintain them even when the people that we love, the people we care about, maybe not respected so much. It happens all the time. How you react to it, communicate your boundaries, reinforce them time after time. Your boundaries are being tested. Let's get to that discussion, but before we do, remember to like this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Remember to also share with somebody you think could use some boundaries or reinforcing their boundaries. So when you want to begin making boundaries, it starts with reflecting on yourself and your values. Boundaries are almost like a rule for your life, a way to establish the type of life you want to live. So what type of life do you want to live? What are your values, your needs, things that your moral compass allows you to do? What is your life like, and what do you want to see it in the future? And that's really important when you realize that boundaries are not just about the present, but about the future. You can't change the past. The present is still ongoing, but the future is something that you can look onto, and you can say, in the future, this is the type of life I want to live. So what type of boundaries do you need right now based on your values that will get you there? And boundaries are not the same for everybody. Everybody doesn't appreciate the same boundaries. Everybody doesn't need the same boundaries. But maybe a boundary could be something as simple as, if you have an issue with your spouse, I don't want to get involved in that. Maybe you're having an issue with this other friend. I don't want to hear you say something negative about it, because you don't want that level of negativity. It could be something as simple as not wanting people to call you after a certain time. Maybe it could be that I just don't want people coming in uninvited. That could be your boundary. And some people may be okay with people just walking into your house, coming to your fridge, eating your food. So it's different for everybody. But what are your boundaries? What values are they based on? And it's really important to connect your boundaries to your value system. It gives it even more importance. Why am I doing this? And when you know your why, and you know how doing such a thing would improve your future, it makes it easier to maintain it and to make it something that you follow. And when you follow it, to communicate to other people to follow that as well. So ask yourself, why? What are my values? What do I value in my life? What are my morals? And why am I doing this? And get that why based on your self-reflection. And I always put in new boundaries time and time again when I find it very important. I end up reflecting my life. What can I do better? What have I been lacking that I want to improve on? And when you see that and there's a need for a boundary, take that chance to make one. After you identify what your values are and you start to put in those boundaries, identify where your comfort level is. What are your limits? What are you expecting? It could be in a relationship with friends, or a personal relationship, even a relationship with your parents. What are you comfortable? What are you willing to do? What are you not willing to do? And that's really important when you have friends, especially, or people that you continually hang out with. They could have different beliefs that, okay, I'm friends with you, but maybe when I'm around you, don't smoke. Like, that's my boundary. Or maybe when you come into my house, a smoke-free zone. I can't control your life, but when you come into my home, we don't do this. That's a boundary. It could even just be something as easy as, like, I go back to the phone calls. Because after 10, 11, 12 p.m., I need to sleep so I can wake up in the morning. And if you call me and you're trying to be on the phone for an hour so we can talk, I don't have the time because I have to sleep and get ready for the next day's work. And that's reasonable. Everybody doesn't have the same comfort level, value the same things. But if those are the things that are important to you, communicate that limit to yourself. Then communicate to other people. But let's say you are on a budget where you're paying off debt and you have made goals to reach that, and you tell your friend, we can go out to eat, but I don't want to go to a super expensive restaurant. It should be one of those restaurants that things are costing under $50. Those are all good things. Like, there's nothing wrong with having those boundaries. And it is really important to identify that now and your limits and make that be known. So after you've identified your limits, you've identified your values and your boundaries, you've made them, communicate them clearly. Nobody can read your mind, and this is something that I have had to become comfortable with verbalizing as well. Oftentimes we make this mistake to think that, oh, people should be able to see it. You're here we talk about certain things, so why don't they know it? But people can't read your mind. Speak up for yourself and convey it in a clear, concise way. Don't make it seem like it's an option. So let's go back to the example of being on the phone. Instead of, yeah, I'm tired today, and just expecting your friend to get it that I'm tired today and therefore every day you don't call me at this time. Or maybe you say 10 o'clock is not really a good time for me to talk. That's communicating. But if you wanted to really communicate it clearly, you can tell them, when I come home from work, I have between this time and this time to, talk on the phone, to get things done. However, after 10 p.m., I would not be taking any more of your calls because I want to be able to sleep peacefully and wake up well rested for the next day. Taking your calls at night and we're staying on the phone for a long period of time really impacting my sleep. I would just want to rest. You don't even have to justify it, but if you wanted to because they're your friend, this is the reason why. But again, you don't even have to tell them, you know what, I just won't be picking up any calls after 10 p.m. And they'll probably ask why, and then you can explain if you wanted to. But those are ways to clearly communicate it, because sometimes I know some people may be uncomfortable with things, but I don't know because I can't read their mind. And if they're always doing what everybody else wants to do, how would we know that you're uncomfortable with it? And it doesn't have to be something bad. It could just be something that is regular, and then maybe you just don't like to do it. Maybe you don't like when people curse in front of you, and then you can communicate it. So after you've communicated it, it is time to be consistent. If you are not consistent with your own boundaries, people are gonna think you're not serious. Let's go back to that phone call example. You told me that don't call me after 10 p.m. I'll not be taking any calls. But then I call you at 10 p.m. You pick up the call. I call you at 11, you pick up the call. How are you being consistent? What does that tell me? That I can call you and you'll still pick up. Or let's say you turn it the other way. Now you start calling me at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. If they're not supposed to be receiving calls, but they're calling me, it must be all right. If you're not continually sticking to it and being consistent, people will not take you seriously. But that's the problem that we do, because if we see them calling, we clearly told them not to call that time, and we pick up the phone, we are reinforcing that behavior for it to happen again. And I think I've talked about this in another video before, positive versus negative reinforcement. Positive reinforcement doesn't mean it's a positive thing. It just means that you are encouraging that behavior to happen again. If a child throws a temper tantrum and you give them candy, they will probably do it again because you positively reinforce that behavior by giving them candy. So if they wanted candy again, they will throw a tantrum and you give it to them again. It increases the chance of that behavior happening versus negative reinforcement, which is stopping that behavior from happening again. So instead, let's say the child throws a temper tantrum and they talk to me like, don't do that. It is not good for you to do that. And then you stop it right there. And so going back to our example of the phone call, if your friend keeps calling after 10 and you don't pick up, they will get the message that they shouldn't be calling you after that time. And then you don't call them after that time too. And it gives you a nice balance of boundaries that you're being consistent with and you're consistently enforcing in your life, and they will get the message. And once you're doing all of this, remember to prioritize your self-care. And there's so much going on between the economic issues that we are having. A lot of people have personal issues, work-life balance, schooling. It's a lot going on. And to prioritize your self-care. Boundaries are hard. It's hard to put in place and it's hard to reinforce in your life. But remember that it's about taking care of yourself. And it's not always about trying to make everybody else happy. I heard this quote that I definitely enforced in my life is choose guilt over resentment. And that means that if people are sucking your energy and everybody's asking you to do something, but then at the end of the day you resent it because you feel like you've not been able to take care of yourself or do what you want to do, then you feel resentful. But if you choose the guilt of, no, I can't come out with you today. I can't do this. I can't say yes to this. I'm not gonna pick up that phone call. You feel guilty not doing that. However, in that guilt that you choose, It's better than resentment. Taking that phone call, staying on that phone with that friend for an hour, and then looking at the time, I'm losing an hour of sleep that I really need. That's gonna build up into resentment in the future. And one day you'll probably be having a little argument and it's gonna blow up, and you're going to say it and then blame them for it. They're not to blame if you're not reinforcing your boundaries. So make sure that you choose guilt in that moment over resentment, because if it keeps happening and happening and happening, you will feel resentful. And one of the easy ways that this happens is with money. If somebody asks you for money and you give it to them, you start feeling guilty to say, no, I don't have it, or I just don't have enough to give to you. You decide to give it to them or to lend them the money, and they don't pay. And they keep asking you for money, and then you keep giving it to them instead of saying, no, I'm not going to do it anymore. You keep giving it to them. It builds up into resentment, and that's how relationships fall apart. Make sure that if that's one of your boundaries, if you ask me for money and I have something little to give, I'll give it. But if I don't have it to give, I will not be lending money. Choose guilt over resentment every time, every time. Now let's talk about maintaining those boundaries. You have to be firm in it. Communicate firmly. Make sure they know that these are your boundaries and you're firm about it. Don't be wishy-washy about it. Don't feel like you're making them uncomfortable by expressing your boundaries. Sometimes we may feel like, oh, I don't want to make it all about me. But remember that your life is really about you. And yes, there are other people who may depend on you, you live in this world with, but at the end of the day, you are living with yourself 24/7. That's more than anybody else. So remember that you want to be firm with your boundaries and don't give them options to violate them. And once you're able to be firm with them, learn to say no. I've learned to say no. It's not always the most pleasant thing to do, but sometimes it has to be done. Oftentimes, when you say no, it's again choosing guilt over that resentment, and know that in this moment, I can't do this. No. And if you're not the type of person who's used to saying no, it's very hard. You have to practice it. Practice saying no. No, no. Can I have some money? No. Do you want to go out 10 p.m. on a weekday? No. Learn to say no. Don't feel like you are disappointing somebody by saying no. In this time in the world, you can't always say yes. You can't say yes to everything and then feel drained afterwards. Learn to say no. And if you didn't say no, you may want to seek some support sometimes, whether it is with friends and family, to communicate with them to help you build your boundaries. So I know that for me, my friends came and said, hey, like I'm having issues with my boundaries and I need help in this. I would be glad to help them find boundaries that work for them. But then also you can go to a professional like a therapist. You can talk to your church leader or a mentor to help you set boundaries. A lot of mentors who are, especially career mentors, would know a good amount of career boundaries that you can utilize to make sure that you're staying focused on your path, and also how to address the work-life balance. We don't live in the world alone, and a lot of time we need people. You may think that setting boundaries is taking people away from your life or limiting the access people have in your life. And that may be true, but only to a certain point. We still want those human relationship and fellowships. But also that network of people can help you maintain your boundaries in sense of, let's say I tell somebody I don't want to pick up calls after this certain time. They call and then I pick up the phone, like, hey, did you say you weren't picking up the phone at this time? Like, reinforce your boundary. That's another step that people can really help us with. And so it's really important to surround yourself with people who support your boundaries. And with those people, you also want to make sure that you are reevaluating your boundaries time after time to see if it still serves you, right? Does it still bring you joy? Is it still a need? Maybe it was for a season point where you were working, going to school, doing a whole bunch of stuff. You had that boundary, but now you have a more flexible schedule. So you can pick up calls at 10, maybe stop after midnight. That's something that you can reevaluate. Go with it. It's important that as humans, we reevaluate our goals, we reevaluate our lives, our future. Things change, so it's really important that we have a different boundary that we go with. There's nothing wrong with changing your mindset, and as your values change, as you grow, as we develop into new, better versions of ourselves, it's important to also reevaluate our boundaries and to make sure that they serve us to the best of who we are at the moment. And in those moments, we need to also be mindful of our time. And that's what boundaries do. A lot of times, boundaries give us back power and time in our lives to be able to do what we need to do. And so always make sure that you are practicing the best time management for yourself. And oftentimes when you are able to have strong boundaries and you take the time to reinforce it, we reclaim some of our times back. But in all of this, it's important that we practice self-compassion. And that's something that I see that we don't always have for ourselves. We don't always have compassion for ourselves. We are so hard on ourselves, and that's not fair. It really isn't fair to be so hard on yourself. When you start a new boundary and you are just telling people about it, you have to get comfortable with it. It's not an easy process, especially boundaries that have to deal with people that we love, people that we're very close to. That's hard. Let's say I had a close friend or really close family that just came and said they needed money because something horrible happened. I can't promise that I would not lend them money. Now I do know that I may not get it back. It's really hard in that time. I just know that as a human being, like, things happen. That's not an excuse, but sometimes we just have to express that compassion for ourselves for the things that we also didn't know, for the things that of the past that, let's say, we didn't really enforce our boundaries really well. Maybe you felt taken advantage of, you were used, or you gave money and then the person never paid it back. We have to forgive ourselves. We have to forgive ourselves that past self and to learn from that experience and know that in future we will do better. Nothing accomplished from tearing down yourself because of things that you did not know or things that you did not do. The past is the past and the future is to come. So let's look forward to that. And always remember that the people who do not respect your boundaries are often people who benefit from you not having any. Why else would somebody not give you the respect of respecting your boundaries? And why else would somebody feel so comfortable violating it? Because oftentimes, when you have those boundaries, they don't benefit from you. They don't benefit from your time, from the money that you no longer lend to them, knowing that they will not pay you back, taking all of your energy and using you. So make sure that you know that if that boundary serves you and they don't respect it, you want to start revaluing your relationship with them as well. And with that, I am bringing this video to an end. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And in the comment section, let's rate our processes for boundary setting and maintaining. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very poor and 10 being excellent, where are you in making boundaries and reinforcing them? And how has it impacted your life? Has it made it better or even worse? Let me know. I like to read it. Like this video, but also ring the notification bell because I post 2 videos a week on Tuesdays and on Fridays. Come on over because there'll be a new video waiting for you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.